work session for today, Monday, February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope that I am not the only one that has reminded you of that today. By this point, Christy, I'd like to thank you for reminding it on our official agenda today. It was very appropriate. Our 1 o'clock session begins with special presentations and public comments. Councilman Cassida, you are recognized. You have a guest that you would like to address the council.
Yeah, Mayor, I appreciate it. In our last board meeting at the museum, all good news came through. So I asked Lucy to come today and present her report and findings from the museum. You know, about 8 months ago, I made a comment that I thought that the museum was moving in the right direction. And I asked Lucy if she would speak to that. And I want to give a lot of credit to Lucy and Hank Matheny both over the last year of where we're at with the museum. And I think you'll be very impressed with what she has to report. So,
thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, John. I thought it was appropriate that Tom asked me to come and present on Valentine's Day, of all things, because I guess what we have here at the museum is a little bit of a love story. When about a year ago, a little more than a year ago at this point, there was just a group of board members that decided we were going to do whatever it took to make sure that the museum survived through the COVID pandemic and beyond, and hopefully come out stronger than we started. So we set to work making renovations, creating a capital campaign to focus on renovating our rentable spaces, which is our cultural center, which is where we have all of our big events and fundraisers, our education room, our conference room, and we've added 5 new HVAC units. We've replaced about 60% of our roof through the help of grant funding that we didn't have previously, through the help of some very generous donors, through the help of the City Council as well. Y'all donated to that, so thank you very much. I'm taking a break and smiling at Tim Sinnard over there. But the renovations isn't all that we've done. Of course, we have reopened our doors to the community. It's been almost a year now, and so we've been holding events and fundraisers and programming. We really decided to take a look at everything that we do at the museum and decide whether or not it was the best way to do it. So we've made a lot of changes. We've cut a lot of expenses. We've cut our staff, which isn't always an easy decision to make, but that's the decision that we had to make in order to survive. We have restarted our History Happy Hour programming, our Music Under the Stars, which we have tonight on Valentine's Day. We're looking for a big crowd there. We've added a program called Coffee with a Curator, where we have meaningful conversations with people. It could be about anything. It could be about conservation, or it could be about genealogy. It could be about, well, we've got the Conservation Kid coming at the end of April to talk about his cleanup efforts. So we're excited about that. We're trying to do programming that is meaningful to our community and impactful. We have a Black History exhibit that is coming up that Councilman Johnson's been helping us with. So those posters are at the printer, and we can't wait to get those back. We just have a lot going on. We decided that what was lacking at the museum mainly was a lot of programming, and that the museum needed to be a place where every weekend people had a reason to come downtown and visit. So we're trying to provide programming that isn't just meaningful to the museum and our guests, but is also meaningful to the downtown community, and have it at times that other businesses can be affected. So maybe we have Coffee with a Curator, then everyone goes and eats lunch. Or at Music Under the Stars, hopefully everybody goes and eats dinner somewhere downtown, and then they come to the museum. And so we're really doing what we can to do our part for revitalization, and to do our part to breathe life back into our downtown community, especially after the pandemic. Our events are going well. Tara wrote 7 contracts last week, so people are definitely ready to get out and about. We've reworked a little bit of the way that we do our events. We've kind of made it to where we offer hourly rates, and we just offer a few different packages to meet a wider range of budgets, so that everybody can afford to come to the museum and feel like they're welcome there. The thing I think that Tom and I are so proud of, and the reason I'm here today, is that we got our fiscal year 2021 audit back. We did actually, somehow by the grace of God, end up making money during the pandemic. And not only that, we cleared all of our going concerns that have been placed on our audits for the past several years. So basically, that means that our auditors have no fear that we're going to make it. They feel confident in the museum and that we're going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, that's the scope of that going concern. There are not going to be any more going forward, though. We have nothing that in our financial picture that concerns me or worries me in the least. There's only positive things with a lot of great programming coming up and so much to look forward to. Our education, I do want to just brag on our education program for a minute. We have summer camps that are coming up. We are partnering for the first time ever with the Children's Discovery Museum in Chattanooga to provide a STEAM camp that is kind of geared to the industry in our area. So they are bringing the staff, they're designing the program. They're also going through a renovation there at the Children's Discovery Museum, and they won't be using some of their older exhibits, and they are going to offer those first to us. So I'm so excited to be able to possibly get some upgrades to our children's part of our exhibit that might be a little bit more science-based and STEAM-based to attract a larger array of children to the museum on a regular basis. So, gosh, I just want to thank the City Council for their support over the past year. I know so many of you have helped with our programming or with our board. Marsha McKenzie was on our women's panel back, when was that? Fall break? September, I guess, or spring break. I don't even know when it was anymore. Everything's such a blur, but we have had such a great time getting to know you and getting advice and listening to what you have to say and truly trying to put it to work to the benefit of the museum and to all of downtown Cleveland. So we thank you for that. We look forward to the revitalization efforts that are coming. I can't wait to see what happens on that property right behind us. So I'm just waiting with bated breath. Y'all call me, let me know. But we want to do our part to help with anything that we can and to be here for a resource for downtown and the community as a whole.
Ms. Reimer, thank you so much. Any comments from the council from Ms. Reimer?
I just want to comment on a great job y'all have done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great job.
Surely.
A lot of credit go to Lucy and to Hank Matheny too, in moving the direction they have in the last year.
I'm very
Take this
fortunate.
over, so.
I'm very fortunate that Councilman Estes and I are there often for weekly Rotary meetings and other events, and the work that you and Tara and Hank and the board have done is to be commended.
Thank you so
And
much.
it's a great, you have brought us a great Valentine today, so thank you.
Lucy,
thank you.
Lucy is not only the director there, but she's also the entertainment.
I heard.
Yeah, I'm also the entertainment. I told somebody it's a little bit like Hello Dolly.
Well,
No singing today.
when you just said getting to know you, I thought you were going to break into a song.
Ooh, I could have. It would have been a great opportunity, but no. We've hired professionals today. So.
I'm glad
Your
you brought
partner's
that.
not here today, right?
Yes, yeah, my partner's not here today, but we certainly have had a good time. Yeah, expanding all of our offerings. If I have to sing and dance, I'll do it if that's what it takes.
I heard it was a great time and you did a great job, and you continue to do a great job. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If y'all excuse me, I hate to duck out and miss the rest of your
No.
work session, but I gotta go plan a party across the
We,
streets.
we get that a lot.
Thank you.
You're excused, definitely,
so much.
100%. Before we hear from our city manager, I would be remiss for not commending Chief Gaylor and the 303 initiative that launched today from Cleveland, Tennessee, Station 5. We gathered at the very early hour of the morning. A full moon was rising over Paul Huff at about 5:45 to 6 this morning, and two men, Nate Kuzdal and Drew Rader, local firefighters, are walking from Cleveland to the state capitol, 170 miles approximately, and they are walking to raise awareness for the Dust and Samples Act, which Councilman Webb has a resolution on our agenda later in the meeting, at the 3 o'clock meeting. But Chief, if you could please thank not just the firefighters that are walking, but there's an incredibly large number of support. The Cleveland Police, thank you, Chief Gibson, their police escorts to this morning. Our thanks to Sheriff Lawson all the way to the county line, and then Hamilton County picked up. It doesn't seem possible, but they're walking to Ooltewah today and possibly to Collegedale and beyond. But if you think about it, it's going to take 7 days, Chief. Do I have that right? 10 days. It's a drive that Representative Hall and I know very well, and to contemplate walking it is just astonishing. I'm thrilled that they're doing it to raise awareness, and I'm thankful, Chief. Please thank them on our behalf. Any other comments from the council before we hear from City Manager Joe Fivas? Mr. Fivas, sorry for that delay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I have a couple things to go over. The first one is the presentation on the SR 306 corridor study. Here on the consent agenda, we have the final adoption of this planning report that was done. This was a joint effort between the MPO, the county, and the city to look at future transportation corridors within the city. This was an idea that we've talked about a number of times of extending 306 from Highway 60 through Free Will all the way down, and then going on to Harrison Pike, and then going to the Tom Rowland interchange. And the state funded a study that looked at that, the good, the bad, and the ugly of those ideas, and we have those things, and I'm going to go through that in just a moment. This was a fairly comprehensive study. They went through, and I should say there was a consultant, Reagan Smith. Greg Thomas, who is here, can address any questions, and he was the leader behind this program. And they went and they had online surveys, and they had public meetings, and got all kinds of data. They did an economic analysis that we'll go through. They looked at some of the zoning, and they looked at what are some of your first steps and recommendations. A lot of that is covered in this little handout that I gave you, and I'll go through that. If you have any questions, certainly let us know. First thing, and I have it up on the board, and that is really small, and that's nearly impossible to read. But we'll pretend that we can read that. And I don't have a full copy in front of me. So the first thing is they went, and what you'll see is you had a stakeholder meetings and what the most supported items are, and they had an online survey on the top three of the strongly agreed thing. And so from the survey online that they had, which they had a number of people provide, the most important element they had was improving Free Will Road from the traffic. That includes putting future sidewalks and upgrading that facility, which is obviously in the future. The second point that was the most strongly agreed with is that is to start looking at how to do the road from Tom Rowland interchange to Harrison Pike, and how to configure that and to make that happen. And the third one on the online study is to start planning and figuring out the I-75 bridge in a new location. Right now, You have, right there across from Prospect, one of the determinations they made in the study is that area, seems to be problematic. And moving that new future bridge down the road a little bit and connecting in the free will, and there's a diagram in here, would be a better alignment, and to not get in the middle of the school and the cemetery and some of those elements, and that's what the survey dictated. One of the things, then they went through and they have a potential land use map. You know, you see that one of the key findings is to look at some expanded industrial use. This purple area that's right here is they're suggesting to extend that industrial area, but then extend the mixed use and commercial actually down APD 40 down to this intersection, which is obviously the South Lee intersection. So it kind of changes kind of what some of our thoughts were. They had a number of elements that this was always going to be retail. They're suggesting moving that down and making this more light industrial. With putting this new corridor, that would come, essentially connect from here to over here. Indicates that would probably be mostly mixed use and probably mostly residential in those areas, and that would be bore out. There's going to be a slide here that I'm going to get to. At full build out, if you were to build this connection across there, which would have to be a joint project between the state, the county, and the city, that you would, the economic analysis showed that it would bring $26 million every year to the county and the city through property taxes and sales taxes on building out that area. I'm sure many of you have lived the Paul Huff corridor expansion and how that was probably looked very similar to this back in the day before Paul Huff was built. So back in the future, or into the future, we view that this will generate some development. And we know that the development, if you look at how things have pretty much built out towards the exit 11, is that exit 20 is likely the next exit that will develop and have the high intensity, and we're already seeing it, industrial, commercial, more intense uses for residential in that area. So, in going through this document, it has a number of recommendations, and I'm happy to go through or talk in depth about any of them. That essentially it kind of boils down to they are in favor of improving Free Will Road in the future. They believe that from an economic impact and a transportation impact of being able to connect over from exit 20 directly over to Harrison Pike is a benefit to the community from economic, but also from a transportation standpoint. And that they gave a number of steps on what we should do. Consider some rezonings, consider probably, this would all be contingent on working with the MPO and the county, Cleveland Utilities, and everyone on trying to implement this. So at the end of the day, this is the number one step on about 100 different steps. This is not meant to be right now. This is things that we should think about when we start doing our planning and discussions and working through a number of these items, is to start looking at this area, trying to develop a strategic direction moving forward. So when approving today, you're basically looking at some of these recommendations. As staff, on the transportation side, one of the things that you have Robert Barnell here today is that he's going to bring some transportation stuff to the planning commission to start talking about this, and we're gonna have a more intensive conversation on how to start implementing something like this. You know, it's not gonna be immediate, it's gonna be some time, but how do we put in the framework from a planning perspective, whether it's small area development districts, to make sure we have the right zonings, to make sure we're getting the things that we want, make sure that everyone's on the same page, and working with the transportation organizations to make sure that there's clearly where is the future corridors from transportation, where should they go, so that you don't put a subdivision on top of a future transportation corridor, which has happened in the past in most every community, so we're trying to get around that. So with the approval, basically, it starts the process at the planning commission on the intensive transportation elements. So with that, are there any conversations? And I want to give full credit to, this is Reagan Smith that did this presentation, that came up with the findings, that did everything cradle to grave. Our staff with Greg did a nice work through that, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And we'll probably have these consultants go to the planning commission coming up and to begin this much, little bit more intensive conversation about what the next steps are. With that, are there any questions? That being said, I will move on to my next item. This is an update on the Hot Slaw and Y'all Festival. Just to let you know that is coming up. It's something that our Parks and Recreation has been working with the festival. Art is here, the chamber, and working through that. You know, we have a small sponsorship for some of the event, and just we'll continue. It's coming up in April, and we will continue to advocate and bringing in people from within the community and outside the community to come enjoy downtown. Will be very important. So, if you have any questions on the Hot Slaw and Y'all Festival, Patty Pettit, who is not able to be here today, she's our representative of that. She could answer any questions.
I look forward to that.
Yes. Give an update on the 17th and 20th Street project. As you know, that we've been working. That project is slated to be done probably a little ahead of schedule this summer. 17th Street is just about completed. The last thing they have to do is pour the sidewalk right within Deer Park. You know, you had it dips down into the park, and we'll have like a 7-foot sidewalk coming through there. There's a wall there to hold back and to balance out the site a little bit, and it will look very nice. We'll probably have a ribbon cutting on the finishing of 17th Street coming up probably in the next, hopefully 30 days or so, and we'll go. If you haven't been over to Deer Park, Sean was commenting, is that just about every single day we have hundreds and hundreds of kids that are enjoying that park, and the only thing it doesn't have is parking. So, and so that's not a bad problem to have. It's not great, but it's well used, and this will add to the connectivity to that.
Joe, do we have some kind of termination date on 20th? Or completion, I should say.
Contract runs through the end of May. I anticipate, end of April, early May, we should be done. That's what I think, with everything, like cleaned up and out of there, so. But the contract does run through the end of May, that's what it was planned to be.
Now, you think they're ahead of schedule or
I do.
on? Yeah. Yeah, we'll be happy. The
Mhm.
neighborhood will be happy. Yeah. We've all had our share of calls.
Yeah, it has not been, you know, I give a lot of credit to the contractor and Robert, because it's always supposed to be a tough project,
Yeah.
especially with all the utility issues that we ran into. It wasn't great, but I think that the end product is gonna be pretty nice.
Yeah.
And,
No, and I do appreciate, the problems that you ran into, especially utility company,
yeah.
that they updated everything and of course, in the future, it will mean a lot, that we don't have to go back in the street.
I will give tremendous credit to Craig Molnax and Tim Ederson and CU for helping us out in there. I mean, it was some that sometimes you don't know what's under the ground, but they really stepped up, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for, on a quick time frame to get in there. It wasn't, there was nothing quick on it if you're the residents that live there, but for the work that they did, and I know David knows a little bit about it, for the amount of work that they did, it was actually pretty quick
Yeah.
for what they did.
True.
So CU deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, but, a lot of times people can't understand how it's gonna be in 6 months. They're looking at it's gonna be the next 6 days. Anyway.
They give you 6 days, huh?
Not really.
We usually get to the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Oh,
The Dalton Pike sidewalk, if you haven't been out in that direction, it's starting to come together, and you can see, it actually gives a lot of definition to that Dalton Pike. It's, I think that section is out in Miss McKenzie's district, and, it'll be a sidewalk from Walmart, it'll come all the way down, connect all the way down Wildwood. It'll be a great feature, and it will, I think, help from a walkability standpoint, but it kind of squares off some of those areas where you used to have some ditches, and it looks very nice when it goes through there, so I encourage people to go look at that. The LIC North project is a project that we've talked about for too long to even talk about. The official date to start is February 18th, I believe, that the contract said. So they will be out moving dirt and getting stuff ready in the next month or so. We've, just with announcing that project, we've had a number of calls from the development community, and I would expect that with the stuff that we just talked about, is opening up that whole area is what we're seeing is, I think we've had 5 or 6 calls on land development over there in the last few weeks. And, it's something that, transportation and road access will open up areas, as you all know, and we're seeing that here as well. With that, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any other announcements.
Mr. Fivas, thank you for those updates. Any questions from the council before we go to the review of 3 o'clock? Seeing none, please continue.
Starting at 3 o'clock, we have, starting out, we have a special presentation, and we have public comments on an item for the changing the ownership interest in elixir and wine spirits. From my understanding, and again, this is mostly a state process. We have in our ordinance that we want to see this stuff and to be able to develop, but really the first part of the process is at the state. This is a request that the current owner essentially sell the ownership. John, is that in total or in partial?
I'm pretty sure it's in total.
Okay. To another group who has been vetted by the state, and they didn't have any issues with that. I will tell you that there was a previous group, and the state said, we're not comfortable with that, and so they moved on to another group, so that the state is doing their due diligence, and we haven't found anything at issue with, the group that's going to purchase.
Joe, is this, didn't we vote to let this individual, the owner, give 30% to someone earlier? They bought 30%. Is this the same? Is this the same
what-
store?
That's what the state rejected.
Yeah, and I don't wanna get in the weeds, and I don't wanna talk about something that I don't know all the details on, but that one did not make it through the state process.
Oh, okay.
And so this is a second LLC group that is going, that there's a conveyance of ownership from one party to the other party.
And you say this is full ownership instead of partial,
That's what John tells me,
and the other was 30%
yes.
originally. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll hear any public comments on that.
Joey,
Yeah,
there's no vote on this?
there is, it's on the consent agenda.
Which,
It's on item I.
I'm on the wrong, next page, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, I'd like to pull that from I and put it on new business. Can you remind me, or Sean remind me, of how liquor stores cease to exist in Cleveland to get our number down to 5 from our ordinance?
Business would be the obvious one.
I'm sorry,
If they close their business would be the obvious one. But under state law, a liquor store that has a license from the state has the right to sell under the state law. But it has to be to somebody who qualifies to receive a license. One of the common disqualifications is gonna be, there's a limit on how many liquor stores an individual can own in Tennessee. I think it's 2. I haven't looked at it recently, but you can't own an unlimited number.
Two.
And that includes someone who has a percentage interest in either a corporation or an LLC.
can you remind me of what our ordinance says then? Is it only go out of business? Is that the only?
It doesn't, it just says, if for whatever you're not gonna issue any new ones to anybody else until unless the number drops below 5, is what it says. So, whatever you have now, it can't go up.
What about
It could go down.
What about the moving of a store, the relocation?
State law also allows that, provided you meet the state's criteria, which I don't know what they are by memory, but it can't be within a certain distance of an existing store. It has to meet your zoning. There's 2 or 3 other things. So there is a provision in state law that would allow it, but not just anywhere. So the idea that you can move it anywhere, you have to meet the state's criteria. Whatever those are. I can look those up for you. But this is not moving the store.
Yeah, the city may have more, John, this is more of a question, but I think the city has more of a say in the relocation of a store. Because
For
then,
instance.
we're starting our process over again, and
So so if you were looking at relocation, right now your ordinance allows them to go in certain locations. You could shrink those locations now, if you wanted to. You're not gonna affect your existing permit holders, but if you wanted to say, well, they're allowed in CH, but we don't want them in CH, in certain areas of CH, you could change your ordinance. It wouldn't be retroactive, but it might be prospective, and that might make a difference. And I say might because it's gonna be up to the state. The state would advise the city, if somebody came in and said, we have a liquor store at X location, and we'd like to move it somewhere else in the city and surrender that location and get a new one, the state would have to first approve that.
but
And they might very well.
But we have to comply with our local
Probably would, is what
zoning.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Probably would. I can look that up for you, I just don't know what it is by heart. There is a provision though in the state law about relocating an existing liquor store.
So to my colleagues, let me tell you where this comes from. Certainly, state law trumps anything we do. Wildwood in first and second has 3 stores within 1,000 yards in an area that doesn't need 3 stores within 1,000 yards. So, different ways to put a trigger in place so that should any of those want to sell to move elsewhere, we don't want them, you know, like what Eastridge did was excellent, right? Last year, the way they handled their stores, where they said they could, really thought through it. They actually looked at what we did and said, oi, 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 and they went another route. I don't know if now's the time to think about changing our ordinance on where stores can move, but we have a problem on Wildwood. Excuse me, I believe we have a problem on Wildwood that is our making. I don't know, I don't have an answer on the fix. I don't.
Well, we'll find out as time goes on if they can exist.
If they
With
can
that
sell,
many.
like, here's what we're doing, we're going
Yeah.
through, I'm gonna sell to somebody else, and it's
Well-
like, and I'm gonna sell, and I'm gonna lose money, and I'm gonna sell and lose money, and so it's gonna get cheap enough where someone can make it, right? And so it stays, and it doesn't really go out of business. So we're stuck, Wildwood's stuck right now, you know, and Cleveland is stuck. I go through there late at night, you know, there are problems. And so, I'm not, to staff, to Joe and to staff, I'm not asking, I don't know for an answer, right? If anybody will look at me, nobody wants to look up at me. But this needs to bear in mind when these issues come before us, and if there is a way to set structures in place to make Cleveland better and sort out what's on Wildwood, I think it is worth our time. And that's the genesis of these questions, and how to work within state framework on that.
Yeah, and we're happy to look at options. I think we've proposed in the past is going and proactively eliminating, so one store couldn't move to another section of Wildwood or Dalton Pike or wherever. And I think going and, like Mr. Kimball said, is basically saying, this is where, if one of the stores doesn't make it, I don't know if you want to be here, and basically have the state say, well, they have the right to move another 1,000 feet down the road. Is if you proactively say, this is where they can't go, that will help look at some of those areas.
Which is what I'm asking for. Are there structures we could put into place that would disallow? Nothing within a half mile, nothing within a mile of previous stores.
I know there's a distance limitation in the state code. What I don't know is if you could shrink the areas where it could go, and then the state would say, not only does it have to meet all the state requirements, it can't go anywhere where the city no longer wants them. That's a separate question. See the question?
Right, and I remember when we went through this a few years back, other states were allowed to do that. Other municipalities within states could do that.
I can get you,
Yeah.
it's easy to
We
get
went
you a
down.
copy of the state code on how one relocates a liquor store. That's in the TCA. But I don't know, what we can ask this person at the state, if the city currently allows it in CH and wanted to shrink some of the area of CH in the city where they could go, should this ever come up, what would the state's position on that be?
I would appreciate that.
This person gives Christie and Sean feedback pretty regularly. Yeah, we'll find his name.
I'd appreciate it.
It's a good question, Councilman Estes. It seems that we are circumventing our own initial reduction of liquor stores by going out of business if we're just allowing them to reshuffle the deck. So, good questions. Any other questions for the staff or Mr. Fivas? Please continue.
I'm gonna skip the public hearing thing, and I'll talk about it when we get to the old business. is the consent agenda. Item 7A is to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with TDOT related to the I-75 northbound ramp traffic signal equipment. If you recall, we do have a project proposed by the state. This is essentially the initiation of that. They would redo the northbound ramps, and they would pay 100% of that cost. We would have a little bit of cost to reconfigure the traffic signal at that location, and that's essentially what this is, is indicating that we have that responsibility for the traffic signal. Item 7D, which is Resolution 22-07, is authorizing the purchase of a personal protective equipment for the part. This is basically your respirator systems. We buy this quite often. This is it's a new vendor, I believe.
Yeah, it's NAFCO, we bought from them before, but not purchase this big.
Yeah. So basically, we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's and allowing us to continue to purchase from them. And then we have Resolution 7C, which is endorsing the Free Will SR 306 corridor study that we already talked about. Item 7D is Resolution 22-09, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Cleveland Utilities for utility pole relocation at Paul Huff Parkway and Peerless Road. We have a design of that that we can show you. That essentially this to do this intersection project, which we are getting very close to being able to put out for bid, and CU needs to modify the location, and it's not even necessarily as much the pole as it is the guide wires in there. So this would just reconfigure that and make that part of the project move forward. Resolution 7E, or 7E, Resolution 22-10, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Habitat for Humanity. This is just a furtherance of the agreement with Habitat for Humanity and City Fields. We probably have the City Fields agreement at the next meeting. It's just getting down in black and white on what the agreement terms, and we'll need that for compliance with the federal government. Then we have Resolution 2211, supporting the principles of the 303 project and the James Dustin Samples Act. This item was requested by Councilman Webb. I don't think he sent anything to me. Did he send something to you on why he put this on there?
He did, and asked for me to read it at the 3 o'clock. Would you like me to read it now?
It's on the consent agenda, so you can do it both.
I'll do it both. All right, this was received from Councilman Ken Webb and asked for me to read it at the explanation of the 303 support item on our agenda. It says, Mayor Brooks and fellow Cleveland City Council members, regarding the Tennessee State House Bill 1356 and Senate Bill 1023, amending the TCA Title VII. As introduced, the bill enacts the James Dustin Samples Act. I have requested City Manager Joe Fivas place on today's agenda a resolution for your consideration, the purpose of which is to show our support for the efforts to have, under certain conditions, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder experienced by firefighters, recognized as a compensable injury under the workers' compensation law in the state of Tennessee. The bill introduced in the state of Tennessee legislatures are known in memory of Cleveland firefighter Dustin Samples. Known as the 303 Project, the effort is to amend the current law referring to Dustin's badge number, which was 303. I ask that you join me in supporting the concept of the 303 Project by approving this resolution and asking for our local state delegation in Nashville to do the same. Ken Webb, Cleveland City Council. Thank you, Mr. Fivas.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7G. This is a street light recommendation on 4th Street. I think there were some questions on that. I think Councilman Kessler had some questions on that.
Yeah, Mayor, Joe, I appreciate the clean utilities, and I recommend go ahead and go forward with this. But I would ask, this thing, it runs for a full block, this parking lot, and I would ask if you and your staff would look at this and see if this is, there's other alternatives for lighting in that area also. I know Clean Utilities put some, the one light's across the road in the center that lights it, so I don't know, I'm just asking if you and the staff can look at that and see if you could recommend if more lighting is needed.
Christie, Christie does our streetlight request stuff, have you heard anything else from CU on this item? I think you're thinking about additional lights and all, and
Yeah, on that parking lot, because it goes for a full block, I mean, the length of a block.
Yes, I did not recommend the additional lighting, but I
Yeah.
can ask them to review that again and,
Can I jump in? Because this is
Sure.
problems,
Sure.
I'm gonna talk more about Worth than Fourth. So this is like, I understand, I don't know if this is true or not. This is a city lot, we own this lot?
We do.
Okay, that makes it different, in my view. With the problems on Worth with trash, other problems that we've had that with different people that have arrested and phone calls throughout Worth, I see the value in having light on that lot, because it does come next to Worth and we do own it, and it's a safety issue. Which is different than just Fourth and a couple of fixtures. So I'd echo this, say, yeah, let's look at it as a city lot, what needs to be done, and maybe not, whatever, I don't know. Lighting's not my thing, but, yeah.
So essentially what you're asking for is to make sure that city parking lot has substantial light for that corridor, and even if we need to add lights, that we should get a recommendation
Now,
to do that.
are you talking about a light within the park?
We own the city lot. It's
Yeah, I know we
dark.
own the lot.
It's dark to the
Yeah.
north, right? It's
Yeah.
dark to Worth. We got problems on Worth. I don't know that, there's trees there too, right?
Yeah,
And so like, right now, the leaves are down, it's different. The lights are different now than it is in the summer. That's the route I run when I leave my house in the mornings. I sometimes go down Worth, or I go down Broad Street, or I'll go down Cove Street. I've seen trouble in, so, I don't know what it would be, David, but I think let the city staff look at it and make some suggestions. It's a lot we own. I just thought it was owned by the Mill Iron
I was
building.
gonna say, I thought that was Mill Iron too.
I thought that was part of the Mill Iron.
No,
building.
it's-
This is Banks Building.
This is
Yeah.
it. That's right, so Richard, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know it was all.
It was brought to my attention because the building, the $1 million building's been rented out, that some of the ladies are coming down parking in that, and they're uncomfortable about how
but
dark
are
it is.
we having problems with people parking at night in that parking
No,
lot? No,
It's-
okay.
but we have,
The businesses, people are parking there to walk, and it's a little dark, David.
Well,
at
yeah, I
times For
understand,
ladies, they
yeah.
feel uncomfortable.
particularly this time of year, it's darker,
Yeah.
earlier than nothing.
Yeah.
We'll have them
Yeah.
look at that.
Appreciate it.
We don't have the light monitors and stuff, but we'll make sure that they have a robust understanding of what's being asked.
Lane Clean Utilities, I welcome this light being put up, but I just asked some staff to look at it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 7H, which is a motion to declare one of our K-9 units, which is named Aries, to retire from the Cleveland Police Department. I'm not sure I've ever retired a service dog, but I like that. What did you say, Christie? Saying retired is better than
surplus property.
making a surplus property.
Agreed.
What kind of pension does this dog get from the city? Is there food or anything?
It gets free food forever. In all seriousness, we have a canine unit that's towards the end of its normal productive life as a canine unit. To separate that person from the owner or the person that they've worked for 6, 7 years, Mark?
Right about 6, 11 or 7.
Yeah, and so it would probably take a decent amount of time to retrain and to get someone else acclimated with the dog. We think the humane thing to do and the best thing for the animal and the officer is to retire it and then get a new dog and move forward with that. We have, and we are having a retirement party immediately after this meeting. No, okay. We have item 7I, which is the issue that's been moved. Did you move that off the agenda?
I'd
Yeah.
like to remain off.
It will now be item C under new business.
Thanks.
And then at this point, I will, I'm gonna do 7B, discussion and timelines of the implementation of the Paul Huff Parkway intersection requested by Councilman Webb. Right now, in all honesty, all of our engineers have been out in the last 30 days with, at different times with COVID, so we probably missed our deadline a little bit. You lose a week here, you lose 10 days here. Is that we pretty much have all of Peerless and Paul Huff designed, and we're pretty comfortable with that. And then we're about 50% of the way on the frontage drive, Paul Huff. Our goal is to put those into one bid. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, they're working, they're all back and they're working to get that project up and going. We're working on, and it's not an essential piece, for a donation of right-of-way from the Wendy's, I believe. If we don't get the donation, and we can still do what we want to do, won't quite fit as well, but, so we're working on that, and we'll have that out to bid and under construction probably May or June, maybe July, depending on who the contractor is.
We want to bid them together.
So,
Mr. Fivas, I do have a couple of comments also submitted today to the council by Councilman Webb regarding item B, the Paul Huff intersection projects. So I'll read it as submitted. Mayor Brooks and fellow Cleveland City Council members. Several months ago, we discussed upwards of 10 projects designed to alleviate safety and congestion concerns along the Paul Huff Parkway. All of the projects held great potential to address many of the concerns we all hear about on Paul Huff. I remember we discussed having these projects done in 2 years. The public also heard us say that. Recognizing that we still have delays with materials and other issues related to COVID, I am asking City Manager Fivas and staff to provide us at the next meeting with a timeline of the design, funding, and completion status of each of these projects. I trust that we are still anticipating their completion on the previously announced timeline and would like to get a commitment to that or to such. Signed, Ken Webb, City Council. Thank you, Mr. Fivas.
thank you. At this point, I will turn it over to Robert Barnell, who will walk us through the zoning 22-05, which we have a public hearing on, and then our new business up to you to consider. And our projector just died. If it didn't die, you would be able to see it on the screen.
Wow.
I was going to point to some things, but oh well.
Do we need a
That's okay.
resolution for a new projector?
Yeah,
Thanks
I
to
believe they can handle that.
that
I don't believe it's over 10,000, is it?
As you all know, at 3 o'clock meeting, we had
Sure.
a public hearing. Unfortunately, I'll have to step out after this, so I wanted to go ahead and kind of give you some thoughts on this PUD, which is on Durkee Road. There's
Mr. Barnell, this is PUD 33, according to our,
I believe this one is actually, yes, that is correct.
okay.
And we've got a total of 149 single-family homes allotted, which is, those are all accessible off of Old Power Line. There's 166 townhome units accessible off of Durkee Road. And the staff report, the PUD put together by the staff recommended a lot separation minimum of 46 feet. The planning commission recommended a lot separation of 40 feet in conjunction with the applicant's request. Staff does feel that the 46-foot separation for those structures is important, and keeping in mind, we'd already kind of set that precedent on previous PUDs with the 46-foot separation. So that's an item that is kind of left out there. Staff still feels that the 46-foot separation between structures is the right choice, but obviously, that's our recommendation.
Robert, can I speak into this and then you correct me if I say something wrong?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you are incorrect, I'll do my best.
Please. So I was on the planning commission when we voted on this, and this came on the heels in the last 2 months of 3 cluster developments where we did change the distances and the buffers and the setbacks for density purposes. So there was a tenor there. Staff spoke to this. It wasn't, the planning commission wasn't adamant that, oh, it's shush, we can cut it to 40, right? It was just kind of part of the flow of the discussion. So, and I think if staff would have been this adamant at planning commission, it would have changed our tone. Right? So I don't think that this is necessarily against what we were talking about. Would you, I mean,
I agree.
it was pretty amicable, but.
And don't take my comments as saying that the planning commission was incorrect. I'm just
Right,
saying
and I don't think we
the
were.
vote ended up that way.
Yeah. It was easy discussion, there wasn't, and we had, and it came on the heels of these kinds of changes, so I don't see any of this.
I know,
Yeah.
no, and to be clear, my point is just, in thinking about the overall aesthetic of the development we're looking at, and the kind of precedents we want to set moving forward.
But Robert, we dealt with this before,
Yes, sir.
and we decided 46. What project was that?
You'll have to forgive me, I'll have to look back.
That was old Tasso.
That's correct.
Same, Mike Cross, the same, engineer.
It's Tasso, on the north end, off North Lee Highway. It's up on the ridge top.
Yeah.
So Bill, you're speaking for the planning commission?
No, I'm just giving you context, because I represent us there,
Yeah,
and the needle is moving.
so
and I
you think they don't have a problem with 46 feet?
Well, it's our decision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this council's, this body's decision.
They
Yeah.
told us they would lose 3 lots, which isn't a lot, but.
Out of
I think
that many.
Our policy is that this subdivision is bigger than some of those cluster ones. I mean, we're pushing over 300, single-family residences in this one, so to make it, 46 is still pretty tight, so we feel like it's fair.
So you.
But when you're talking about
We-
46, are you talking about all the lots, or did they have a couple lots that they?
This is the detached, and they did not specify exact ones where they would like that deduction.
Okay.
Had they done so, the discussion might have gone differently.
Yeah, if they came back and said,
Maybe
you know, 2 more, we could fit two lots in at 40, well, then we might consider that, come back and amend
Right.
to do
Yeah.
those 2, to let those in, but if it's, the whole thing 40, that changes.
It changes the dynamic considerably, and we've got 3 coming, or 2, on the planning commission coming up where we recommended 46 in the PUD. That's kind
Mr. Varnell, do excuse me, can I ask, at Mr. Kimball, now that we're in this discussion, Councilman Hughes has asked about past discussion, including 46. Councilman Estes has brought up the fact that the planning commission agreed to 40. We have both a hearing petition and a new business ordinance on this matter. If the actions today of the council should go against what was brought to us by the planning commission, and a motion is made to move it to 46, will it have to be, can it be done today, or would that include a second reading because it is under new business zoning ordinance? And we would have to vote on it twice.
Can we pass it subject to changing that one item?
I think it's a 2 vote anyway.
Yeah. And then we would vote on it in its correct form the second time. I'm just getting I see where this discussion is going,
Yeah.
and I thought I would go ahead and ask the lawyer now,
That, yes.
rather than at 3 o'clock and embarrass myself in front of my mom. And
Yes, is there some middle ground, it sounds like, where you're looking at saying, well, we would shrink 2 or 3 lots to 40 and leave the rest at 46 versus just have them all at 46 and losing 3 lots? It sounds like there's 3 options.
And I understand where you're going with that. The one thought I had is that there have been several, at least a month or two of discussions on this. The clarification never came about what that distinguishing factor was and which lots would need it.
I thought we did discuss those, the detached, single-family homes.
But it's, I think what is being brought up is the fact that there could be 3 lots out of all of them that might need it, but we don't know which 3 those are.
might need the 46 or might need the 40.
The 40, yeah.
Yeah, but could they not go before the Board
BZA.
of Zoning and Appeals?
No, because it's a PUD, you have to
Oh,
amend the PUD.
yeah, you're right.
Just amend the PUD at that
Yeah.
point, though. We could come back and amend the PUD later.
PUD can always be.
It could amend it, yeah.
Not, just based on, I think they're amendable to their understanding of, this is a conceptual,
Yeah.
and I don't feel that it's gonna be a deterrent in any way.
And just for clarification, you said we're approaching 300? It's 149?
149 single family, and then what was it, 160?
It's 166, so you're over.
Okay.
So the whole thing is.
It's a pretty big campus, right?
It is, and.
The other ones you approved to go 40 has been very smaller campuses.
Well, it could be a
correct?
more
Footprint.
urban environment instead of a large greenfield, which is what we're looking at here. It's not like we're trying to shoehorn something in here. We've got some room to do
Your,
something nice.
yourself and staff has recommended 46.
140, yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from
46 is recommended, not 40, but 46.
46 is what staff has recommended.
Councilman Estes?
Yeah, just to my colleagues, I defer again. I feel like the planning commission is appreciating the direction given by the council. And this is another way that we speak as a body and that we'll be, would you agree with that? I mean, whether
I
the
agree.
sidewalks, cluster,
Yeah, I think that we'll have further discussions on this tomorrow, but I feel like that's the trending direction.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Varnell?
Not for me, sir.
Any remaining questions or comments from the council? Thank you, Mr. Varnell. It's always good to see you. Mr. Fivas?
Yeah, and I'll add that, it's actually a nice development. I mean, it's, they have amenities, they have playgrounds, they have pool, they have, clubhouse, and it's a well-designed community that I think will be a good fit in that area. With that, I don't have any additional items unless there's any questions.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Fivas from the council? Seeing none, we will be adjourned until our 3 o'clock.